let us know. Okay, great. Welcome everyone to our January 18th Community Board 1 meeting here at the glamorous Astoria World Manor. We're in a new room tonight, a little brighter, so thanks to them for hosting us as always. We have a few things on our agenda for this evening. We are going to start with a public hearing item. We're going to hear a BSA application for 3102 Astoria Boulevard. We then have a representative from the New York Immigration Coalition who's going to provide a Know Your Rights presentation for us. Public session, our business session, and then any reps from the elected officials. We were expecting a few elected officials tonight. 2 can't make it. I think Senator Gonzalez may still be joining us at some point, but we're going to go ahead and get started. So is the applicant here for BSA? For the BSA item? Yes? Okay, great. All right, so the first item, again, item number 1, BSA, calendar number 532-32-BZ, 3102 Astoria Boulevard, Block 620, Lot 24. So this is an application to amend an existing variance for a gasoline service station in order to alter the existing size and use of accessory buildings and update gas dispensers and canopy. So we're going to hand it over to the applicant to do their presentation.
Good afternoon. How's everyone? Sorry guys, I'm super nervous. So I'll be talking about 31-02 Astoria Boulevard. If you guys want to walk 3 blocks away in the cold weather, we could go there right now. It's literally 3 blocks away. So basically this premise is a gas station, and all we're doing is demolishing only 25% of auto repair shop, and instead it's going to be a repair shop, it's going to be a convenience store. So the gas station was already there in 1933. However, it was approved during 1938 by BSA, and it was also amended in 1958. But supposedly, the previous owner who amended the plan never actually built it, and it was just there. As I mentioned, we're going to only demolish 25% of the auto repair shop and convert it to a convenience store. And there's already actually 2 existing dispenser, but we're going to be relocating it to a better spot and adding 1 new one. And this will, for this plan, as you guys could see, there's 2 dispensers, sorry, and also mobile, and also the location of the auto repair shop and the 3 existing curb cut. This plan shows the existing floor plan. Auto repair shop, and this is where the restroom is located, the boiler room, the storage, the existing elevation, the front and the side. What we're proposing, as I mentioned, there will be 2 relocated dispenser, but 1 extra new one, located at the left side of 89th Street. Sorry. Oh, Astoria Boulevard. Sorry, that was a mistake. I apologize. We're only demolishing 672 square feet, and everything is going to be remaining the same. So since we're cutting down the building, we're going to have like a new interior. The bathroom layout is going to be only just one bathroom instead of two. And the restroom, that there was already a restroom over there, is going to be replaced with a trash enclosure to keep the area more like clean and decent. Here is the detail of the 3 dispenser and the new canopy that we're going to apply on top of the dispenser. It's going to be increasing the size of it. And the proposed elevation. As I mentioned, there's like a bit of summary what we're working on. As I mentioned, we're cutting down 672 of the building only, adding 1 extra dispenser and keeping the 2 existing one. However, it's going to be relocated, and that's it. Any questions?
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any questions? We'll start with Antonella, then Jean Marie.
When you say dispensers, you mean like the gas dispensers are going to be relocated? And if they are you looking at any, are there any environmental concerns that have been addressed ahead of time with the relocation of the dispensers?
That's correct, and there's no concern. We haven't got any comment back from BSA so far. The only comment that we had was the parking, and we're still discussing about the parking where we're going to be relocating the parking spot, and it might be in front of the auto repair shop, the existing one.
Okay, sorry, let me drill in. When you're relocating the pumps, the containerization of the gas, is there any concern of oil or gas spilling into the ground? Is that being looked at? Like, who's taking care of making sure that that doesn't happen?
We will be contacting the DOP, and they will let us know the future report if there's going to be any problem in the future.
Jean Marie?
What are the hours of operation going to be? Is it going to be 24 hours or is it,
It's going to be 24 hours.
24
Since it's a
hours?
busy area.
and is it self-service or are you going to have people pumping also?
Self-service.
All self-service, okay, thank you.
Dan?
Thank you. I have 2 questions. You're going to add 1 pump. Are you going to add any tank space, any more tanks for storage of fuel? Also, the dispensers that you have, will they be 2-sided? Will you be able to have a vehicle on each side of the pump? And how many vehicles can you have filling with fuel at the same time?
Sorry, can you say the first question again? I do apologize.
Are you adding any fuel storage capability? You're adding 1 more pump, but will you have more storage capability for fuel?
No, we won't be having.
And how many thousand gallons do you have there now?
For 4,000, I believe.
How many?
Or 16,000.
16?
Yes.
Okay, so at 16,000 gallons and 5 pumps, will you be having a fuel truck in there every day to fill up?
Probably or like monthly, depending on the engineer calculation.
How many vehicles can be filling at the same time? Will be able to be filled at the same time?
6.
6 vehicles filling at the same time, possibly 6 vehicles leaving at the same time, possibly 6 vehicles coming in at the same time. Sounds like a lot going on in that one little spot. I'm concerned about that and pedestrians going by while all that is going on.
I do agree with you, and it's something that us and the engineer who are actually supposed to be here but couldn't make it, we're actually communicating about it along with the BSA, the department.
Will you be coming back to tell us more about this? Or at this point, there's a lot of questions that I have, and I'm only one person.
Honestly, I would love to come back, and if there's a chance for us to come back and to respond to all the questions, yes, we definitely wouldn't mind coming back again and answering all the questions. But we will have more answers into it because like we're still discussing with the owner, BSA, the engineer, and other team regarding the site.
Yeah, because these are crucial questions that I'm having, and you don't have any answers. So it sounds like it's really preliminary stages of this project.
So it is there's an existing gas station there, so it's a change. Yeah, they're going to be changing some of that. All right, I know other people had questions too, Kathleen and then Amin.
So you're going to be ending all of the auto repair that's currently on the site or servicing?
Yes, that's correct.
And am I correct in assuming that's going to change the environmental footprint? You're not going to have as much in terms of waste to be disposed of and things, and it's going to be your basic convenience store food and basic supplies?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Amin?
I'm little good evening, everyone. I'm little confused with your location because, you know, your picture, I know that gas station, and that's on 30th Street and Astoria Boulevard. But here is saying the 25th Avenue, it's 89th Street. If you could just, you know, and I know there you have now 2 dispensers and already it's tight. And when you're going to put the 3-1, I'm a little confused. Where you are going to put the building, and, you know, it's just like totally like, you know, it's not correct that way you've been saying here.
I do apologize. As I mentioned before, we made a mistake with the
so
address.
is that the 25th? I'll catch up. Is that the 25th Avenue? Is that the 30th Street? You are on Astoria Boulevard and 30th Street and 20 Astoria Boulevard.
It's 31st Street and Astoria Boulevard. That
The other
right on the
store
corner.
we're talking, the corner one,
Yes.
not this side one.
No, it's on the
But
other.
no, they're saying
yeah.
and then
Yeah.
One page is saying the 32nd
Yes,
Street.
if you were to walk down towards 31st Street here from Astoria Boulevard, it'd be across across the street,
one.
right
But-
on that corner.
Yeah, but how about why they are showing here the 32nd Street?
I think it was a mistake.
It was
That's
a
what she
mistake.
said.
They're saying somewhere 32nd Street again.
She said it was a mistake. Yeah. Yeah. So it's 31st and Astoria Boulevard.
I get you.
Okay. Other questions?
That already,
Okay,
already is very tight.
Please hold on. I'm sorry, I mean, what was your question?
Even though the other one is very tight, with that 2 dispenser there, I don't know where they're going to put the 3 dispenser and where they're going to put the building. It's like little very confusion.
Okay, so I think, do you want to show the drawing again of what it's going to look like?
So as you can see, there's going to be dispensers right across of the Astoria Boulevard, 3 of them. It's going to be there. It's not as tight as it seemed to be when we did the drawing. However, next time if we come with the meeting, we're going to show the dimension. Maybe that's going to be clarified even better.
Thank you.
No problem.
Adam?
I just had a request about just kind of an issue with gas stations in general. The sidewalk and the area for cars is like never very clearly delineated, and then you end up with cars all over the sidewalk. I think in the cover photo, there's a car parked on the sidewalk here. As you're redeveloping this, I'd just request if there's room to add a curb or something to like actually divide that space so that it's clearer to everyone using it, that would be great. Because I think with adding more dispensers here, you're also going to, you know, as this is showing, have a lot of traffic intersecting with pedestrians, and this is a pretty busy corner. So I know it's not part of your plan right now, just a request as you're building this.
Thank you. Anyone
Thank
else
you.
questions? Andreas?
Just a quick question. So during the committee meeting, I think there was an outstanding question about the BSA permits, and that usually they have term limits, but this one doesn't. And I'm not sure that we got a full explanation as to what the difference is and why this one doesn't have a term limit. If you could provide, or if you have any new clarifying information on that.
For the BSA, actually, we will attend, like usually BSA, how it works, like we attend several hearings, and then as soon as it gets approved, we start getting a permit. So far, we're in the stage like contacting the owner and like trying to get an agreement. And then from there, we have like a meeting with the BSA and see their opinion, if they agree or disagree, and they actually give us their opinion of how we could switch things around.
But usually those permits have like term limits of 10 years, but here I think in the past they haven't had term limits, and I don't think you guys anticipate this one to have term limits either. So I was wondering what the difference is exactly.
Sorry. So actually, so for this gas station, actually problem is like this gas station was built in 1993, and it was way before the zoning thing came up in New York City. So that's why they don't give you any term limit, because it's a grandfather rule. And after when you built 1961, that's when the BSA give you the term limits. So this gas station doesn't have any term limits.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Does anyone from the public wish to speak for or against this? You can step up to the mic if you'd like to. Please say your name and sign in.
How you doing? My name is Kimberly Elliott. I live in Astoria houses. As for the gas station, I come through that area maybe 4 times a day. It's already crowded, more like jam-packed. When it's rush hour, I'm trying to come down to the Parkway. I'm all the way on 21st Street. We're crawling already. With the construction that you're about to do, it's really about to cut off that little side street from 31st. When you're on 31st, to cut down that road so they can get on the Parkway and for us to keep moving on. And you're talking so low, we can't hear you. So I just wanted you to know that too. My deal is, what are you going to do to prevent that?
Thank you for letting us know, by the way, about how busy it is. I'm not from this area, so I wouldn't know, to be honest. I would actually announce it to my team and let them know how busy it is and how crowded the area it is, and how they can, the construction, when I speak to the constructor, I will let him know also. I will keep him aware of it, and I will try to get information how they will prevent it from being crowded or blocking the area.
That pedestrian, it's also a pedestrian crosswalk over there. I want you to know that. So I drive, but I also watch for pedestrians. That little cut area is very dangerous. If you block that area at any point, somebody's bound to get hit because you can't see as is over there. And with the construction guys and the trucks and everything else, it's going to become a hazard.
Once again, thank you so much for letting us know. Obviously, people's safety are very important. Like I said, I'm going to transfer your point of view to my team and let them know that how dangerous the area could be if we do block the road.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you. Anyone else want to come up and speak for or against or make a comment? No? Okay, we're going to close that public hearing item. Thank you so much. We're going to move on to the next item in the agenda, which is a presentation from the New York Immigration Coalition. They are going to do a presentation about knowing your rights. So they're going to cover all sorts of things. I'm not going to say what it is. I'll let them do their presentation, but we'd like to welcome them and thank them for coming. And after they present, we will do a brief Q&A.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, Good evening. My name is Wenny Chin. I use the she, her pronouns, and I am the Senior Director of Community and Civic Engagement at the New York Immigration Coalition. As our name implies, we are a statewide coalition of organizations that are immigrant-led, immigrant-serving, and we are based all across the state. We have offices from Buffalo to Long Island. And our goal is to really harness the collective power of immigrant-serving organizations and communities to champion policies and advocate for services and resources for immigrants across New York State, no matter where you are in the immigrant experience. And I say that whether you've just arrived to New York this morning, or whether you're like me and you're born and bred in New York City. So I hope that I know that we only have a short amount of time today, so I'm going to give an expedited version of our Know Your Rights presentation, but our full presentation is available on our website for any amount of mass distribution, and is also available in 13 other languages, accompanied with a facilitator guide. But my goal for today is that you will walk away having a stronger understanding of what to do should you encounter any immigration enforcement, both ICE and in Border Patrol, and also understanding what your rights are during those interactions. I do want to caveat, I myself am not an attorney. I am not a lawyer, so I will not be able to give you any legal advice. Please use this presentation as general education only, and I hope that everyone can make it a practice to, one, not reveal to me or in any public setting, whether it's virtual or in person, any information that reveals your personal immigration status. Okay, so with that, I want to jump into talking a little bit about our immigration system. Presently, our immigration system is housed under the Department of Homeland Security. I want to share a little bit of history. Prior to DHS being formed, DHS was formed after 9/11. Prior to its formation, immigration was processed under the Department of Justice. So folks recall in the 80s and 90s, a lot of folks who were migrating to the United States were often seeking refuge from different parts of the world, and their asylum applications were processed with the Department of Justice. Before that, it was processed under the Department of Labor. And I highlight that distinction because America is very much founded and built upon by immigrant labor, and it is incredibly the truth demonstrated by how our country has treated immigration processing. But with that being said, DHS, which is our current immigration agency, oversees immigration enforcement in two arms, one being the Customs and Border Protection, often known as CBP in New York State. And we also have the Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, often regarded as the Immigration Police. We also have a third arm, that is USCIS, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigrant Services, where they process your applications for any level of adjustment or visa. Today, we're going to focus on the first two agencies. Starting with Border Patrol, New York State itself is a border state. As we all know, we are part of the northern border. And so outside of New York City, we've seen an increased amount of activity from Customs Border Patrol. So if you guys are ever driving upstate, going on a mini getaway from New York City, you may encounter CBP. They're mostly known for their dark green uniforms and yellow patches, often saying Border Patrol, CBP, or anything of that like. And the vehicles that you may see along the side of the road is this one in the image. It is a white vehicle with a green insignia across it that says Border Patrol. The second enforcement we may see is ICE agents. Maybe we've seen them in a story here. ICE agents sometimes will wear a black or dark blue navy uniform. They will have language on them that says police, ICE, HSI. Sometimes they might be dressed like me. They may be just wearing any streetwear. The thing about ICE I want to highlight is they often want to go undetected in communities, so they might not always be in uniform. So if you think that the person that you're speaking to may be ICE, just treat them as if they are. And a note on the vehicle, sometimes their vehicles will look like this. It is white with a navy blue insignia that may say police, may say ICE, may say immigration. And then, of course, not to be confused with local NYPD officers. And I want to make a distinction here. So, Border Patrol and ICE are part of, they enforce federal immigration policy. That is not to be confused with local police force and any sheriffs that will enforce criminal or civil law. So so technically ICE and CBP cannot pull you over for running a red light because that's not an immigration offense. Even if you are, I don't know, say someone is shoplifting, they cannot hold you for shoplifting because technically that is the police's responsibility. That being said, I know that in practice, they often overstep because they know that they can overstep. So unless we make it a practice of saying, actually, you don't have the right to detain me or you don't have the right to hold me here, they will. Everyone in the United States, regardless of your immigration status, have some basic rights that is guaranteed in our Constitution, mostly our 4th and 5th Amendment rights. So I really want to emphasize in today's presentation that you always have the right to remain silent. Sometimes we see on TV you have the right to not self-incriminate. So you never have to answer any questions should you not want to. You also have the right to refuse any searches of your body, your home, and your belongings. Your right to no unlawful search and seizure. Similarly, you cannot be arrested or detained without a reason or probable cause. And these are rights that is enjoyed by anyone in this country, regardless of your immigration status. I mentioned that you can refuse searches of your personal belongings and home, and I really want to drive in that point because in immigration law there's a huge distinction between private and public spaces. So some private spaces include your home. If someone is throwing a house party, that is still a private space. Workplaces can be both, depending on what they are. Vehicles can be both. Maybe a train, a bus, an Amtrak. Those are public vehicles, but your own car, your Uber that you've hired, that is a private space. And then you have public spaces, which is parks, playgrounds, libraries, etc. And I also want to touch a little bit on something called sensitive locations and sanctuary spaces. Prior to a recent executive order, immigration enforcement was not allowed to enter these sanctuary spaces. What are sanctuary spaces? Any guesses in the room? What are sanctuary spaces? Churches, schools, hospitals, yeah. Other sanctuary spaces, playgrounds, funeral homes, any religious ceremonies were previously designated as sanctuary spaces because we want people to feel comfortable taking their kids to school, going to seek medical help if you need, or continuing to worship. However, a recent executive order has since lifted that sanctuary space amendment. So unfortunately, the truth is ICE can now operate in some of these sanctuary spaces. However, I do want to share, in New York State in particular, there is an executive order that was passed in 2018 that prohibits immigration enforcement from conducting any activity in a state facility. So for example, any hospital that is owned by the state, any public schools that is owned by the state, and universities that are owned by the state. So this executive order does provide us with a little bit of protection in that ICE is not allowed to conduct business in these spaces. They can't be in SUNY Binghamton. That is a state-owned facility. However, it does not cover any private schools or private hospitals and other private institutions like a daycare center. Questions on that? City-owned, unfortunately, does not, but there is a recent memo that came out asking for all city-level staffers to not overstep and support immigration enforcement, and that's not within their purview. But when it comes to actual facility, any state-owned facility is technically supported under Executive Order 170 that was passed under Governor Cuomo. And then another common theme I really want to touch on are warrants. Judicial warrants are the only thing, well, one of two things that can allow immigration officers to enter your home, or any law enforcement to enter your home. Judicial warrants are incredibly hard to get. They require a lot of work from an ICE agent. They have to go swear before a judge, and they're very hard to obtain. If you're presented with a judicial warrant, and judicial warrants are the only thing that will compel you to open your home to an enforcement agent, if you receive a warrant, I encourage you to look for a few things. One is, please make sure it is actually issued by a court and that it is signed by a judge. So court and judge. But I also want you to double check that the name and address is spelled out correctly. Sometimes these clerical errors happen, and you can tell them that this warrant is void. And then the last thing you want to check for is the date. A warrant signed by a judge is only valid for 14 days. So if you're presented with a warrant that exceeds 14 days, that warrant is no longer valid. And you can tell anyone who's at your door with that expired warrant, you don't have right to enter my home. This goes for immigration officers. This also goes for any law enforcement agents, including NYPD. Because judicial warrants are incredibly hard to obtain, we see that immigration officers have started to employ something else. This is called an administrative warrant. Essentially, this is a warrant that DHS creates and is signed by a DHS officer. And this warrant has no legal standing. It does not give immigration officers the right to enter your home. They do this because they know that most people don't know how to differentiate a judicial warrant from any other warrant. So they will come up to your door and show you any piece of paper with a signature and convince you to open that door. If someone comes to your door, the general advice is, one, ask them to slip the warrant underneath your door or hold it up to your peephole so you can take a good look at it. If they slip it under your door, I say a good rule of thumb is to take a photo of it and send it to a handful of friends and be like, can anyone here verify the validity of this judge, if this is a judicial warrant? You can look up what a judicial warrant looks like on your phone and compare it. I also advise you to take a photo of it because should you have to open the door or anything happens, this can serve as an evidence that it may or may not have been an actual valid warrant. I also want to touch on something called Protect Our Courts. In New York State, we passed a law because we saw that ICE was operating outside of courthouses a lot during the first Trump administration. So what happens is we pass a piece of legislation that prevents immigration officers from arresting people outside of state, municipal, and city courthouses. So family court, housing court, these are state and city-owned courts, so they are not allowed to make any arrests outside of these courthouses. I put a caveat in here. Immigration court is unfortunately a federal level of court. So unfortunately, immigration court is not protected under the Protector Court Act. However, if you know anyone or you're working with anyone who has an immigration hearing coming up, I would encourage that you maybe tell them to ask for a virtual hearing instead so that they can feel safer. I want to touch a little bit on commonplaces where you may see ICE. As I mentioned, your home is a protected space. No one can enter without a judicial warrant. That being said, because your home or anyone's home is very, very protected, we see that ICE has some tactics that they often use, including appearing as the police. This is why they wear the word police on their clothing, and they will sometimes go to your door and say, there's been a robbery nearby. We need you to help corroborate. There's been a crime in your neighborhood, and we need you to help us find this criminal. Most people would want to open the door because, we have a human nature to want to be helpful and protect our neighbors. However, we know that this is a very common tactic that is used. So we encourage you, if someone comes to your door and says that they are the police, that you ask to see their badge and ask them what precinct they're with. By law, every police officer is required to show you their badge when asked. And if they're not able to provide you with that level of information, I would say keep your doors closed. If ICE is at your door, we encourage you not to say anything. Don't open your door. Ask to see an ID or a warrant if they have. And if they don't have any of these, you can ask them to leave. If for whatever reason, maybe you accidentally open the door because you want to be helpful, maybe a child is opening the door. If ICE is in your home, you can ask them if to see a warrant, and if they don't have a judicial warrant, you can ask them to leave. They may or may not leave. Unfortunately, while I can stand here and say that everyone has rights, we also know, as New Yorkers, we all know that we've seen one too many times people's rights being violated. So I just want to caveat that we can practice our rights, but I'm not going to lie and say that they are always guaranteed to you, and they will provide you with 100% protection. If they're in your house and there are any children or individuals who are sick or vulnerable, let them know to please not disturb. And last piece of advice is to never physically resist or interfere, because by resisting, you can escalate the situation and maybe put yourself or those around you in harm's way. I mentioned workplaces. Workplaces and sensitive locations are similar because they have a private and public component to them. So ICE can enter the public space of any workplace without a judicial warrant. The only other thing if they don't have a warrant, the only other thing they need is permission. However, ICE cannot enter the private spaces of a workplace or a protected space. So for example, For example, what are private and public spaces in a workspace? If you are at a restaurant, maybe the dining room area is a public space, but the back of the kitchen where staff is, that is a protected and private space. Maybe you are in a daycare facility. Maybe the lobby is a public space, but maybe where you actually conduct business is a private space. Maybe you're at a supermarket. Where people shopping aisles is public space, but the storage area or any staff break room is a private space, and ICE cannot enter that unless they have the manager or supervisor or owner's express consent. So what can you do? If you want to make sure that you're protecting your staff, I encourage you put up very clear signage in these public-private spaces that says staff only, employees beyond this point, no entry, private space. Having very clear demarcations of where ICE can and cannot operate can keep your employees, your staff, your community members safe. What you're not going to do is you're not going to harbor anyone. You're not going to say, run, hide. You're not going to do that. But what you can do is you can say, we have visitors from so-and-so agency. You can't tell other people to run away or hide because then you might be entering harboring fugitive space. But you can make it aware that your business or your faith institution has visitors, as you would maybe with any other visitors. As a general rule of thumb, always stay calm and don't run in these spaces. Even if an ICE agent is in front of you, you never have to answer their questions. You always have the right to remain silent, as I had mentioned, and you don't have to provide identification. You don't have to prove whether or not you're a citizen or whatever you are. You can ask them if you don't have a judicial warrant, you can leave. And a good rule of thumb is to start having these conversations with your workspaces, within any other spaces you exist, now, so that everyone knows how to have a plan. Similarly, in public, whether this is a playground, whether this is outside of a courthouse, you never have to say your name or give any IDs. You never have to answer questions. Where are you going? Where are you coming from? Where do you live? You don't have to answer these questions because you always have the right to remain silent. You can say, I don't want to answer your questions. You can say, am I free to go? You can say, I don't consent to a search. No, you cannot search my phone. You cannot search my bag. If ICE or Border Patrol ever approaches you, they sometimes would do this thing. They will intimidate you, and they will ask, are you a U.S. citizen? You can answer in one of three ways. You can say yes, you can say no, or you can say, I don't want to answer this question. And all of these are valid responses. If you say yes, you are a U.S. citizen, and you happen to have you are not compelled by law to carry any proof that you are a citizen. What you're not going to do is you're not going to lie. And you're not going to say that you are a U.S. citizen if you're not, because then technically that is a crime. You're also never going to, if you say no, and if you have a valid status, you are technically compelled by law to carry that with you. So unlike a citizen, when you don't have to carry your birth certificate, you don't have to carry your naturalization certificate. If you're a green card holder or an EAD card holder, you are technically required to have that on you at all times. And if you answer no, you may be asked to show your ID. But if you say, I don't want to answer your question, you don't have to show them anything. And you can always say, am I free to go? I didn't do anything. I don't have to answer your questions. I don't have to show you anything at this time. A quick note on law enforcement outside of immigration officers is, I know that I said you don't have to show people your ID, and I know I said that you don't have to answer their questions. The few exceptions include whether you're at an airport. In that case, if you're leaving the country or entering the country, you do have to answer those questions and provide proof. And then the second exception is if you are a driver of a vehicle. If you are a driver, you do have to show your ID or driver's license in particular when prompted. So unfortunately, in those situations, you do have to hand over papers. However, you don't have to answer any excessive questions. You don't have to tell them where you're coming from, or where you're going, or where you live. And they also don't have the right to search your car without any probable cause. If you're a passenger of a vehicle, you do not have to show any identification or answer any questions. And a quick note on drugs. In New York State, marijuana and cannabis is legalized for adult use. However, in the eyes of immigration law, on the federal level, any use of drugs, including cannabis, is technically a violation of federal drug laws. So for that reason, if anyone admits to using, buying, possessing, having marijuana, you may face immigration consequences. So I just share that as just general awareness. If anyone is detained or anyone you know is detained, there's a few things you might want to check out. You might want to go to this website called locator.ice.gov. It is very important that maybe if anyone is vulnerable, that they share with someone or with their family their A number, their country of birth, date of birth, and their name. Having someone's A number, it is a number that is given to you by the Department of Homeland Security and basically your identifier number in their system. So if you are detained, having someone's A number will help you find where they are. And general advice is to always prepare emergency contacts if you are someone who is vulnerable and at risk of being detained. Finding a lawyer, having an immigration lawyer on hand, memorizing your attorney's phone number and a phone number of your loved ones. I know gone are the days where we memorize everyone's phone numbers. We've over-relied on our iPhones. But it is very important that if you are someone who is vulnerable, that you memorize at least a phone number of a family member, and if you can, memorize the phone number of your attorney. Because unfortunately, if you are detained, you may not have your phone or access to your phone to make that dial. Keep all your important documents safe. Make a copy of them. Have a family and child care plan. If you're being detained and you have any medicine, you can let the officer know that you need to have your medicine with you. And again, memorize your own A number. And if, as much as people can, save money for these emergencies. A quick note on hate crimes. In New York City in particular, we have a very robust set of human rights laws under the Commission on Human Rights. That includes that you cannot discriminate on the basis of employment and housing on someone's national origin. So what this means in practice is if someone is saying, I am not going to give you your paycheck, and if you don't leave me alone, I will call ICE on you. I am evicting you if you do not get out of my apartment by the end of the month, I will call ICE on you. Making a threat to call ICE is a form of, in this situation, a form of extortion, but also a form of discrimination. So if you know anyone who encounters these situations in employment specifically and in housing, they can reach out to the Commission on Human Rights and file a discrimination claim. So if you threaten to call ICE and you are the employer or you are a landlord, in these scenarios, that is a form of discrimination and extortion. Oh. And with that, I kind of wrap up the presentation. I know we're on a timeline here, but I do want to refer you to the New York Immigration Coalition's website. If you go to nyic.org/KYR, you will find a number of resources. I passed out some cards. These are Know Your Rights cards that anyone from the community can request from us. They are available in a handful of languages. You can also, these are also completely public, so you can just download these and print them should you need. I also want to direct you to this presentation. This presentation is made available in a handful of languages with more to come. And as I mentioned, is also accompanied by a facilitator guide with all of these peripheral comments I've made. And then what I also want to share is we've created a new resource called Immigration Enforcement in the Workplace. This is fully available and in 13 languages. If you want to print this and share this with anyone in your community, please go do that. These are all fully public resources that any member of the community can use. and they are available in English, Chinese, Arabic, Spanish, French, Haitian Creole, Karen, Portuguese, Swahili, Urdu, Yoruba, Bengali, and Burmese, with more to come. I think Russian is coming down the pipeline. So with that, I thank you for your time. If you're interested in learning more about the NYIC, we do have text alerts. So whenever we create anything, you can sign up for text alerts using these QR codes or using this text info NY at 52886 for English and recursos to 52886 for Spanish. So once you sign up, if we create anything, we'll text you and you will get it in your phone.
Thank you. I wanted to see if anyone had any questions on the board. Okay, start with Tom and then Tom. Thomas.
My first question is, if you have a judicial warrant and you don't open the door, can they kick the door in?
That is technically an illegal arrest. If they do not have a judicial warrant and they kick your door open,
I'm saying they do have a judicial warrant, but you don't open the door. Can they kick the door?
they are allowed to.
They are allowed to. Okay. And if you're detained or arrested or whatever, where would these ICE agents possibly take the alleged legal immigrant, for lack of a better word?
Yeah. There are ICE field offices. There are two major detention facilities, one here in New York City that serves from Albany downwards, and then there's another one that is up in Batavia by Buffalo for the northern part of the state. So they'll usually be in these two facilities. As I'd mentioned,
Where are these locations?
I can't tell you off the top of my head, but what you can do is go to, as I mentioned, if you go to locator.ice.gov and you submit someone's A number, or if you have any identifying information, you might be able to find them in the online system.
But you don't have any information, so where are they taking them in New York City?
I'm going to show you these detention facilities. And I say I don't know because we have heard that there are going to be new facilities being built and created, and we've also heard a lot of conversations about one being created in Rikers Island. So I caveat that I can tell you, one, I don't want to tell you a location that may or may not be where your individual that you need to find is, and also things may change in the coming weeks. So the detention facility in New York City, let's see. Let's answer this question together. There's one in Goshen, there's one in Plattsburgh, and then there's one in Batavia.
That's outside of New York City.
I know, it technically services New York City, so. Goshen? It's in the Hudson Valley area.
I'm saying that's pretty far up.
All right, Thomas.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. As a way of introduction, I practiced immigration law for about 13 years. Tom, the detention facility that services the city of New York mainly is in Kearny, New Jersey. So if most people who are overnight detained by ICE lawyers have to take the train out to Newark and then go to Kearny. I would like to provide a little bit of a balance. I happen to be married to an immigrant. My husband is from Venezuela, and as such, we have a lot of parties and there are a lot of great conversations. And many people want to know about ICE. And in the conversations, I always like to interject, it's wonderful to be informed. I think it's a wonderful thing. And certainly, the other side of information is fear, really. What we're looking at with ICE, nationally we have 20,000 ICE agents. I believe that Burger King has 500,000 employees internationally. UPS has 550,000. NYPD has over 30,000 just in the city. Previous administrations always gave us a priority of what the ICE priorities were. As an attorney who practiced in this area, I had over 13 years, and I really did the intersection of deportation defense, or removal defense, as we refer to it, the amount of respondents that I had who were detained as a result of ICE were 2. Both of them were had previously received orders of deportation, and both of them had been convicted of aggravated felonies. So I'll say, I think it's wonderful to have presentations. I think it's wonderful for our community to know what to do and to be informed, and I don't want to minimize that. But I also want to ensure that we know that there's a measured, that we in our community respond in a measured way, and we stay informed, and that everyone is not fearful of going out or thinking that the knock could come any time on the door, because as someone who is in the community, my mother is also an immigrant, I know that fear in the community can be one of the harshest realities, and sometimes we can scare ourselves a little too much with the information we have. But thank you. I also wanted to let you know, in addition to Kearney, and you may want to, I don't know if your organization has the memo that recently went out. I work in the court, in the Supreme Court, and there's a memo that went out because ICE agents are sitting in the arraignments. As such, there was a memo that went out, and there's a judge that's reviewing ICE warrants. So I don't know if you had that information. Yeah, it just came out like last week. But thank you. Thanks so much for your...
Of course, and I agree that we shouldn't thrive in fear. Our communities already persist in fear. We just came out of COVID-19 where we were enshrouded in fear. That being said, I do emphasize that this is a very different administration where a lot of, I think, previous administrations would extend courtesy and would have, priority deportations. The reality is that this president has made One New York he made it very clear that he's going to be penalizing New York and penalizing the immigrant communities of New York. I also want to underline that he has mobilized the National Guard to be support part of the deportation and the border security conversation. And in addition, unfortunately, our mayors also has not been very clear on where New York City should stand as a sanctuary city. So for those reasons, it is always important that we stay informed. But I underline and I agree that we should not persist in fear, because the vibrancy of immigrants and the vibrancy that immigrant communities bring to New York City should never be minimized.
Thank you. Frank.
Thank you for the presentation. And I think one question I have that many of our neighbors would, as I understand, much of what you've presented is sort of evergreen policy. It's important to know now because obviously of what's being communicated, but this has been generally true. I suppose the thing that's come up in conversations I've heard from community members in Astoria is, in what ways should folks without documentation live differently? I'll give you an example. If you don't have documentation, you've never been traveling internationally, because that's obviously a risk. But you will get on domestic flights, at least you would have. Would folks without documentation be advised no longer to take domestic flights? Are there other types of things that have been commonplace for folks without documentation in our community to thrive that now you're seeing direction or signal that requires behavior change? Because ultimately behavior change is the most notable thing people in our community will notice. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. I think that's a really great question. I'm not going to answer or give any advice on individual travel. That's outside of kind of where I can say. However, I would say it is practicing community care. I think, yes, this information is good information to share. And frankly, we've been doing this for a few decades now, providing knowing rights resources. However, I'm going to be honest, prior to November, folks were like, we'll do this presentation maybe once a year at our organization. But now the request for information is outsized. And so I think it is just like making sure people know their rights. Because these rights, everyone has, but most people don't know that they have these rights. And also in the face of an officer, sometimes you are so shocked you might just answer all of their questions and put yourself in a vulnerable situation. So it is just being more aware and practicing that layer of community awareness. Also, I would say, like the note on drugs that I had made, maybe just like to note, obviously it's a personal decision how you want to consume marijuana or any other type of drugs. I would say the note around driving, traffic violations is unfortunately a huge way that we've seen, particularly outside of New York City, where folks will get a traffic violation, and traffic violation can then have a huge impact on their immigration case. So just being a more careful driver is also important. And then the last piece is around checkpoints. If you do see any CBP agents, there might be increased CBP checkpoints outside of New York City, in particular along highways and traffic stops, to just like know how to conduct yourself in these situations and to never actually flee a Customs and Border Patrol checkpoint, because the act of fleeing in itself is a felony.
Great, thank you. And just with at the discretion of the board chair, I know it's early days with some of these changes. I wonder maybe in 6 months, 12 months, it might be worth having another visit with maybe clarity around some of the things we now know, we will know that we don't currently. So thank you.
I would love to come back with.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming out. I thought it was important, given the communities that we live in, the communities that we work with, our own communities. It was important to kind of get this information out. Any other questions? Yes, Jacqueline, and then Kian.
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation. Regarding the workplace, you talked about it being a private and public space. I wondered if you knew, let's say the scenario is that there's an ICE agent who approaches a workplace, and there are public spaces and private spaces within that office, let's say. Does the ICE agent have to compel an HR manager for documentation, or the principal owner? Do they have the right to, say, force, disclosure of status or personal information?
No, ICE does not have the right to compel that information from any private entity or even public entity without a judicial warrant. That being said, sometimes, I emphasize this because when someone's of an authority coming to you, I think it is human nature to want to comply. So that is why we caution, go and have these conversations with your workspaces and kind of make sure that everyone is has an agreed upon plan of how to keep each other safe, because ultimately it is not NYPD that's going to protect us. It is not the council members or anyone, elected officials, that may protect you. It is your neighbor sometimes that will be protecting you. It is your coworker. So really practicing that layer of community care and letting our everyday community heroes shine. But no, they can't compel that out of you.
Kian, and then Dom.
Just a general question. So are ICE allowed to have unmarked vehicles? Because I saw before that you showed the particular, I think it was a white car with a stripe on it. Are they also allowed to be in unmarked vehicles?
I believe they can, and they do.
Okay. I asked specifically because, and this isn't conspiratorial or anything, you can look this up, there's been a rise in people impersonating ICE and going to people's homes, and I believe there was one such case that was even found in Brooklyn. So that's also something to be wary of, not really a question so much as a PSA, that in almost all those cases they weren't unmarked vehicles, and so what they claim as identification alone often is not sufficient to determine whether they are or aren't. So something especially to be wary of as well.
I thank you for that. My advice is, if you, as I'd mentioned earlier, if you are unsure if the person is an ICE agent, you should treat them as such. And what you're going to do in those situations is you're going to remain silent, refuse to open your door or any private spaces, and try to keep any interactions brief. You always have the right to ask for identification, you are correct, but sometimes that's not enough. So I would say, if you think that that person may be an ICE agent, what you're going to do should be no different, regardless of whether they are someone who's impersonating to be an ICE agent or if they are in fact an ICE agent.
Dom.
Well,
that was rough. Hi, thanks for the presentation. So your group is called the New York Immigration Coalition. So I have a very different question, and it's about, I don't know if the term is migrant hotels or, recently, whatever. Has there been any improvement and action in the goals to get these people legal work ability, legal work papers? Because I'm hearing all the discussions about what do you do when someone comes to the workplace? When will we be at a point where, they can have is there any action towards that at all, like there used to be?
Yeah. So
What's being done?
in the past year and a half, the NYC, New York Immigration Coalition, created a legal arm to actually staff up legal clinics to support folks who have been in New York City, but also most importantly, folks who are relocated outside of New York City who have even less legal services, to help them apply for any form of relief, including asylum. For some individuals coming from select countries under the TPS list, our goals were to help them apply for TPS so that they can get temporary work status. That being said, a lot of TPS programs have been allowed to expire or not renewed under this administration. So I'm going to underline by saying, yes, there are efforts to do that, but in this administration, those efforts have been, in many ways, have looked different now. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
I want to underline, the narrative around legal immigration, but what we're seeing, folks should seek illegal immigration, but the unfortunate truth is, as we have seen across the entire immigration landscape, is that legal immigration has been limited for everyone, whether you are seeking asylum, whether you're seeking even a green card. We just heard that I think 5,000, or I don't remember the exact number, of USCIS officers have been let go. And what that means is that now processing times for people have also gotten longer. So there are many different ways that across the board, legal immigration has also been impacted.
Okay, all right, let's thank you once again for coming out tonight and sharing that really important information. We appreciate it. Thanks for all the work that you're doing. I see that Senator Gonzalez is here, so I wanted to know if you wanted to speak now.
Whatever is good in the agenda. If you want me to give my update now, happy to do that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you can do that now. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Is that okay with everyone? Just because I know you were gonna try and come at the beginning. Sometimes you get delayed, so I don't want you. I know you've had a long day too, so if you want.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate the flexibility. We were just in Long Island City, there with the Long Island City Coalition, having an event on the redevelopment that's happening. So appreciate the flexibility tonight. But hi everyone. It's so good to be here. Happy Lunar New Year, since I haven't seen you since the Lunar New Year, and also happy Valentine's Day for all. Hopefully you all had a good Valentine's Day. I wanted to come by. It's the start of the legislative session, give some brief updates, and then there is a lot happening with our federal government and of course our city government. You just had a info session with the New York Immigration Coalition, so also happy to talk about what we're doing in city and state in regards to immigration, and just take some questions broadly. So very quickly, what we've been up to, I think since the last time I saw you, we had some new committee appointments. So I am now chair of the Elections Committee, in addition to being chair of the Internet and Technology Committee. It is very rare to have two committees. I'm very proud to have gotten this appointment from leadership. But what the Elections Committee really means is an opportunity to protect our democracy, because now the state is really the last line of defense for for New York against a increasingly authoritarian federal government. So proud to lead that work as new chair of the Elections Committee. We've already passed a few bills around transparency, specifically around ensuring that any websites, so this is a bill I carried and have passed this year, any websites that are funded by a PAC have to clearly state that is the case, because we're going to see more and more money in our elections. And then I've also passed the chapter version of my Loading Act bill, which is government use of AI, as well as another bill on the floor since I've last seen you and since the start of our legislative session in January, which protects consumers
from getting late charges or termination of service when their utility company is under investigation. So if your utility company has been credibly deemed, a target of investigation by the PSC, which means there are many complaints that have been submitted from the public that have been deemed credible enough, then you shouldn't lose your service. You shouldn't have to pay exorbitant fees. So I'm really proud to have already started the year off strong with passing some bills to help ease the cost of living and work on some really key issues for New Yorkers. In the district, we joined the Long Island City Partnership for our Lunar New Year celebration. We partnered with the ACC to hold a mobile pet adoption at the Chocolate Factory Theater. Really proud to announce 32 pets adopted. We'll be doing this again. We'll be doing it again later in the year, and I will say apparently they have a surplus of bunnies. So if anyone's looking for a bunny, we will have lots of bunnies at this next event. And I hear they make very good and trainable pets. We also have been working across levels of government. We attended an immigration roundtable hosted by Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez. Myself and the other overlapping elected officials spoke with community partners. I see some of the faces who were there in this room and want to thank those who were able to join us for coming to have a conversation around how we're coordinating to protect our immigrant New Yorkers. And then we've also been working on Know Your Rights, obviously getting a lot of literature out, and then in the district on, not in Queens, but going to the Manhattan side of our district, I have been working on NYU Langone. So for context, there was an executive order saying that any hospital that provided gender-affirming care for trans youth would be at risk of losing federal funding. I represent NYU Langone on the east side of Manhattan, and that was the first hospital that we saw to raise their hand and comply. And that was really devastating because, we had been in coordination with the Attorney General's office because that is against the law in New York State. And since then, the AG has put out guidance for NYU Langone and every hospital in New York State that if you end or cancel appointments for trans youth, that you are participating in discrimination, and factually, that is against the law. And what I have a vested interest in as a elected official is making sure that our institutions are in accordance with New York State law. And as a human being, I believe very deeply that we need to protect the most marginalized amongst us. And so I have a vested interest in fighting for this specific community. Not only did we have a rally with thousands of New Yorkers who showed up, but we also organized a press conference the following Thursday with 10 other overlapping elected officials or Manhattan elected officials and the public advocate to send a clear message to that hospital that this is unacceptable. We have not gotten a response to the elected officials since then, and even tonight, as I was in the hallway here, we had a mass organizing call to get more New Yorkers involved in putting pressure on NYU Langone and send a message to any hospital network who may be thinking of doing the same. So a lot of my time has been not only being in Albany working on budget season, thank you to everyone who submitted a request. I see Evie and her other hats also submitted on time, thank you. But a lot of my work in the last month and a half has been resisting our federal government and protecting New Yorkers, but it's also been looking at what's happening at the city level and demanding accountability. And so on that note, I have been very public in my calls for Mayor Adams to resign. I think any mayor that is compromised, that has made a deal to put their own safety first, is not an elected official who's maintaining the integrity of the office, and we certainly need new leadership. And I've also called for his removal as well, if he will not resign. So have been participating in rallies and pressers there. But I will stop because I'm sure you all have questions, and I am happy to talk about any of the things that are going on right now. But thank you for the space to present today.
Thank you so much, Senator Gonzalez. Anyone have any questions they'd like to ask? Okay, Frank?
Thank you for making it down. I just wanted to ask a little bit. I know that we've seen some pretty big pieces of affordable housing policy expire in the past year. I believe right now there's bills S3397, I had to look at the number. The Faith-Based Affordable Housing Act is something that's right now, I believe, coming through the Senate. And I know there's a couple of other things looking at the supply side space. It's been an evergreen issue, obviously, for our community in particular, like Astoria within Queens, Queens within New York, New York within the state. So just curious what's on the agenda on the affordable housing side as you look at this year broadly since it's the beginning of the session. Thank you.
That's a great question. So a few things. Obviously, there are bills that are on the table. We've been supportive of the faith-based housing bill held by Senator Gennardis. You know, I'm optimistic about its chances of passing. It seems like we've gotten a broad coalition behind it. But in the executive budget this year, we've had a few things proposed: more money for Mitchell-Lama, money for public housing. Obviously, on the city level, we had the City of Yes passed, which also includes incentives for affordable housing, and there was coordination there because the state is also going to be unlocking funding for affordable housing in coordination with the city. I will also add that there are some new proposals that we had been advocating for that we're excited that the governor put in her executive budget, her version of it, right? So it's not been passed, but like she gave her state of the state. And one of the things that I would love to put on all of your radar as renters is with the introduction of new technology, some of these tools will help landlords or real estate companies, you know, essentially price set your rents. So they'll see the highest rent in an area that they can charge, and then because they're all part of this service or using the same tool, they're all getting the same information, and it actually was some tools for those stakeholders were increasing rents. And that is actually not how it should work. And so the executive or the governor's office put forward a proposal to end that and not using algorithms to determine rents in areas, because we want to make sure we're maintaining affordability and maximum affordability. So I'm really proud to, you know, that's conversations we've been having, support that too in my capacity as chair of internet technology. But all of this to say, we're showing up with money, we're showing up with bills, and we're also showing up by looking at the unique proposals we can put forward and support that will affect your rents. Actually, last thing, there is another proposal on private equity. So we know private equity is buying up a lot of our housing. So the governor's also put forward a proposal to not allow, I believe for the first 60 days, private equity to bid on a new, I guess, housing, like whether it's a unit, development, a building otherwise. And I think that will also help with affordability. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Jacqueline?
Hi, good evening. Could you go into greater detail about the call for the resignation of the current mayor? What does that process look like? What, you know, what involvement or what motion can the governor do, or is, you know, positioned to do? If there is a resignation that is catalyzed by the mayor himself or by the governor, will there be an emergency mayoral election? I just want to know, like, kind of like the 360 of how this process is going down.
That's another great question. So I'm going to try, there's a lot happening, so I'm going to try to like make it as quick as possible and high level as possible. So the impetus for these calls, as you saw, the Department of Justice, right? So we know our mayor was indicted. The Department of Justice directed the Southern District Court of New York to drop their case against Adams, essentially. And in their recommendation of that, they cited that they were recommending it to help, because they wanted to give Adams the capacity, I guess, to help work with Immigration and Customs Enforcement and carry out their immigration agenda. And as a result of that, the acting attorney of the Southern District, right, of New York, Danielle Sassoon, actually resigned from her role. And in her letter of resignation, she said that she was really confident, and the reason she was resigning, she was really confident that there was a quid pro quo agreement that had happened. And I think that is a credible assessment. I also think she refused to stay in the role and carry out those orders. And I think when our judicial system is under threat, that is a key sign that our democracy is crumbling. And so, you know, we took that very seriously. We do believe there is evidence of a quid pro quo agreement, and therefore our mayor is compromised and should not remain in office. Now, what does this mean? There are three ways this can happen. One, the mayor resigns. Again, really proud to be one of the elected officials, being very clear that needs to happen. And he can, if he does that, our public advocate Jumani Williams is next in line. Will take over. And if that happens in the next 5 weeks, there will be a special election called with a general electorate, which means that anyone can vote in that special election. If it happens later than 5 weeks, then I believe the primary will be what happens, which is like we have a primary in June for, so that's what would happen, right? And of course, Jumani is also next in line, so that would remain the same. So it does, there's a little bit of a timeline, with what triggers a special versus how the election will happen. So I want to flag that. The other two things is the governor has the power to remove the mayor. And I, again, being a state level elected, have been clear that we want to see a removal if he refuses to resign. And the last thing is city council. They have an inability committee. They can also do a vote of no confidence, which will not force him to be removed, but the inability committee would have that power. A vote of no confidence would be really, I think, helpful in this moment, especially to send a message to our governor. And it would be great to see city council do that as a sign of the will of the voters. So those are the three paths. You got governor, you got city council, and then you also have him making the decision. I guess I would also just add, there's an urgency here too, because he has since the DOJ has gotten involved, he has since recommended breaking the law, and that was with the proposal to have ICE go into Rikers, and that is again against the law. It feels like I'm saying the same thing twice. New York University Langone is breaking the law. Eric Adams is breaking the law. I am here to just really get this message across that when I have to spend a lot of my time reminding people of what the law is, we are in a serious situation. And we need leaders at every level of government to be invested in fighting for our democracy and fighting for all of you. I think it's clear that we will continue to see Adams operate in this manner. And so, if you have, I'm not all of your elected, I'm not all of your state senator, I'm not, there are other electeds. If you have opinions on this, encourage you to reach out to them and let folks know how you're feeling. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for
so
coming
much.
tonight and for representing us. Thanks for all that you're doing. We really appreciate it. Okay. With that, I'd like to move on to the public session. So this is where members of the public are invited to speak. You have up to 2 minutes. So if you would like to, please step up to the podium, sign your name. And again, up to 2 minutes, which means it could be less than 2 minutes. Or you have 2 minutes, but Tyrone is keeping time, our sergeant in arms. Go ahead.
I'll try to keep it under 2 minutes. Hello, my name is Ellie Siddons. I'm a resident of Astoria for 7 years now. On Thursday, February 6th, a member of our community was walking down Broadway with her children when she saw blinking signs reading "Fuck Israel" on an LED screen and a sign including a prominent image of Adolf Hitler. These signs were in the window of the King of Falafel restaurant facing out to the street on a busy corner, 31st and Broadway. She stood in shock, worrying who might notice a Jewish woman wearing her Star of David necklace loitering there. She ushered her children away, hoping that they didn't notice the sign, as they can read, not knowing how she would answer the inevitable questions. Do our neighbors hate us? Are we not welcome here? And then the sinking realization came that she would have to pass this spot multiple times a day every week. In 2024, 54% of all reported hate crimes in New York City were instances of anti-Semitism, including instances of verbal assault right here in Astoria. This is not the Astoria I know. We've all seen graffiti and stickers around our neighborhood that feature phrases such as "kill yourselves Zionists," long live Hamas," and comparing Israelis to Nazis with visual imagery. I hope I don't need to express to my fellow Astorians how hurtful this is to Jews and Israelis in our neighborhood. We may be few, but many Jews and Israelis in Astoria are scared. There's nothing wrong with expressing love for where you come from, but this is a demonization. You can affirm your beliefs without hurting others. It's one thing to have opinions, but this explicit hate speech is on our shared streets. You can express yourself in a loving way that makes everyone in the community feel welcome. Our issue with these signs is
thank
the
you.
vulgarity expressed.
Thank you.
Done?
Okay. Thanks for sharing.
Neil Hurden, Friends of Whitey Ford Field. My comments are mainly going to be expressed to the Parks Committee. I think I'm speaking on behalf of all our residents when I say that our parks and playgrounds need better maintenance and security. What I would like to say is, particularly for the parks and some of you who enjoy our parks, I encourage you to go out, work in teams, look at our parks and playgrounds, not just Astoria Park, not Athens Square, not just Socrates, and compare notes. I would think you should all come back, you would take notes, what you have seen in the parks. I would get involved, I would provide feedback, I would talk to the residents, I would talk to the ball players who play in the fields in the Astoria Parks and understand why they're sending their teams to Randall's Island due to disrepair. I would take notes on the infrastructure. I would take notes on improvement, safety, and lighting. Two of the problems that we have is unleashed dogs running around our fields, and now e-bikes and dirt bikes overrunning our fields. For those of you who are on the committee, I think you should take back all your observations when you pull them together. We need to talk to people like at the 114th precinct to find out what their relationship is with PEP officers. We need to talk to Monet's supervisor. Those who don't know, Monet is our parks manager. And we need to bring down the 114th precinct commanders. We need to talk to Eric Gutz. We need to talk to Frank Sparaccio and find out what's going on. The seawalls, we have no idea what's happening, what their state of repairing, and this is something you should be asking in the Parks Committee. And lastly, I want to say this very quickly, mostly for the consumer affairs people. I published an article, I have an article published which I wrote on Astoria's restaurants. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is David Kupferberg, and I am a concerned citizen. The MTA released the Queens Bus Network redesign proposed final plan addendum on December 17th. The MTA approved it unanimously at their board meeting on Wednesday, January 29th. Implementation for June 2025. According to the MTA, it will invest $33.7 million annually, or 174 hundredths of 1% of its operating budget for the project. If the MTA really invested 1%, or 194 million, most service gaps in Queens would be closed and service would be expanded to many transit deserts throughout the borough of Queens. The MTA's rationale for the elimination of Q101 service via the Egg Koch Queensboro Bridge are that 20% of Q101 riders use the service via the bridge. The Q32 and Q60 would have sufficient capacity without a significant schedule change, and the Q101 would serve Long Island City Ferry Terminal. However, 20% of Q11 riders are significant enough to warrant service, and the Q32 currently does not operate overnight. Also, ferry riders pay a premium, and ferry tickets are not valid on MTA buses. As part of regarding bus stop balancing, the MTA is more concerned with the 20-second safe pulling in and out of each bus stop than the time people have to walk to and from the bus stop. To the MTA, take a tip from Philadelphia. Be more concerned with commute times than your bottom line. In conclusion, the Queens Bus Network redesign proposed final plan addendum is nothing but glorified service cuts. The project must be delayed until it is done right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Also, anyone who is speaking tonight, if you have written testimony and you want to hand it in, you can hand it in as well. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Nelson Santiago. I run a nonprofit called NYC Rising Stars, and we help the youth in the community get into high schools and colleges. With that being said, we do utilize fields around Queens, mainly Whitey Ford. Speaking just about that field alone, my organization and myself, we've just thrown in our own funding to utilize tools to maintain the field. Parks Department hasn't really been able to take care of it. We've put in a bunch of complaints about it, and we've been doing everything on our own. So we're just trying to create a safe environment for the community. Adding to the community, we do summer camps there all the time, so we are providing the economic part of having kids use all the stores that are around there, supermarkets as well. We also have very friendly with a lot of the neighbors that are in that community. Have many people given us feedback of, hey, we love what you're doing for the community, for the kids, and everything that we're doing is to help kids stay off the streets, develop good habits. On top of that, just the problems that we do have at the fields. Like I said, lack of water irrigation, lack of grasses being cut. We do have dogs on there creating holes and divots, which I've had a couple of kids roll some bad ankles. Some had to sit out a couple weeks. And just the plain surface gets really choppy if it's not taken care of properly by us or the parks. I have to put a bunch of requests in just for the parks to cut the grass consistently, mow, drag the field so kids are not getting hit in the face and stuff like that. So we're just asking for, help from the community, help from the Parks Department to help maintain that field, to make it, the beautiful field that it is with an amazing view that is there. We're going to be having permits there 5-6 days a week starting in March all the way throughout the summer. And we're there until, God doesn't let us be there for the weather-wise. Thank you guys for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public who would like to speak?
Hello. I also wanted to speak in regards to our concerns about the signage at the King of Falafel restaurant. Putting politics aside, just having the obscenity fuck in big, bold LED signage and pictures of Hitler, totally not acceptable, I would think, in a community that I know of, Astoria, that has always respected people's diversity and inclusion and all those things. So what does it say about our neighborhood if this type of thing goes unchecked and seemingly supported by our neighbors? What will happen next if people are emboldened by messages like these? What can our community board and the members of the community do to fight this kind of hate? How can we get this language off of a public, busy corner in our neighborhood? I'm here today to pose these questions and start a conversation about how we can ensure Astorians can handle our differences respectfully. And if anyone needed to see, we have pictures of the signs. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, how are you? Thank you for letting me speak again. My name is Kimberly Elliott. I'm sorry. Thank you for letting me speak again. My name is Kimberly Elliott. I also live in Astoria houses, and the development that's going on over there is a lot, to a point where we who live in the buildings the water's coming up brown. So now we're trying to figure out where is the brown water coming from. It's not coming from people working in the boiler room. So now where is it coming from? It's coming from all the development that's going over there. We're not going to talk about what's about to happen in the middle of the development. Because there's supposed to be a school and another building in the middle of the development. We don't have a place to breathe now. We don't have parking. You're sitting outside 2 hours to find one space. At this point in time, it's like ridiculous. You can't breathe over there. Once you put those buildings up, the school that changed from a middle school, now it's an elementary school. 15 years ago, I was out here fighting for this too, to not do this. Now it's changed to a middle school, elementary, and a middle school. And then the building popped up out of nowhere from the Dutch development. So I'm really trying to figure out what is going on in Astoria. Okay? Another thing. As for, I hear people say affordable housing, we need lower AMI. Because at this point, everybody is being priced out of Astoria. Everyone. $6,000 for a studio, I don't see it. I don't care what you have, what's going on over there. I've been in the buildings. I went to the house, the warmers. I saw everything. So, is that my time?
That's your time. Yeah.
Okay. Is anybody?
Just to say that we will be getting more information on the school, right? So we've had the Department of Education, we've had school construction.
We're having a town hall
NYCHA.
meeting on the 27th. Just so you know.
Thank you.
Does anybody else want to speak?
Anyone else?
Because I have a little more to say if I can stay right here for a minute.
Wait, what was that?
I have a little more to say.
No, we got to give 2 minutes to each. Sorry.
Okay. Can I just say one thing?
No, I'm sorry. I got to be fair to everybody.
Okay,
Kim,
does
I
somebody
know.
else wanna
We can
speak?
talk after, okay? All right, thank you. I got to be fair to everybody. All right, we are now going to move. Anyone else? Last call? Okay. All right, we're going to move on to the business section now. So first, we're going to start with the adoption of the January 2025 minutes. Okay, we have a motion to accept from Tom. We have a second from Amin. Any discussion, changes? Are we good? Okay, all in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. All right, next we're going to go just very quickly, chair's report. So just wanted to let you all know that I attended a meeting at the borough president's office with all the board chairs from the different community boards, and we reviewed the borough president's budget response to the mayor's executive budget. It included our requests, our priorities in there, as well as the priorities for all the other community boards as well. The borough president is advocating for funding to be restored where it was cut in different categories, and also advocating for us to get our priorities funded as well. So as you know, the budget process it goes back and forth, but he has presented his response that will go to the mayor and to the city council to see as well. So, crossing our fingers that when the budget is passed, we'll be able to get some of our priorities funded. So I just wanted to let you know about that. Also, the applications for community board members closed on Valentine's Day. So soon, I guess within the next couple months, we will be finding out who has been selected for any vacancies here at Community Board 1. Borough Hall handles that whole process, just so you know. But I did hear that there were quite a lot of people who applied for Community Board 1, which I think has been the pattern. So that's really good. I think that's really it for me now. I'll hand it over to Florence for the district manager's report.
Hi, good evening, everybody. It's good to be here tonight. As of late, there have been cases of stomach virus circulating in our community, and cases of flu have been very high. Individuals have been impacted, and we are seeing this locally. Our office recently met with Con Edison at Queensborough President's Office. Presenters spoke about how individuals can lower their Con Edison bills. As energy costs are rising, it's impacting local residents. The company has arrears adjustments on collection cases. Bills are projected to rise 3.5%. Weather conditions are causing higher bills because of temperatures. Con Edison recommended keeping homes between 64 and 68 degrees to minimize the impact. Payment agreements are very important. If you're having difficulties, this will help you. If residents are utilizing public services, they may notify Con Edison. Discounts may be available for individuals who utilize items such as SNAP, HEAP, or HRA. The company explained about curbing use and its importance. Using cold water washes when doing laundry helps lower bills. In future, Con Edison will be seeking additional rate increases due to rising costs. Scam awareness for Con Edison was also discussed. Con Edison does not utilize Zelle or Venmo. Ask representatives for ID cards when they visit your home. Those cards are blue or red. The Queens District Managers met with NYCHA Heating and Tenants Resources representatives. The team spoke about rapid responses they are setting up and utilizing for all NYCHA developments. We learned there are some 917 boilers. The teams must service 713 of those full-time, and the districts are 13 mobile boilers. In our district, Ravenswood is now utilizing mobile boilers, while working by NYCHA is underway to repair. Heating outages are significantly down according to the presentation. The NYCHA representative spoke about the importance of their relationship with Tenants Association presidents. Also, we learned about robocalls utilized in the housing development for emergency preparations. Our office requested more information. Our office has been also hearing from business owners in the vicinity of 19th Avenue and Steinway Street Industrial Business Zone, with great concern related to recent changes by Port Authority of the New York and New Jersey, for hire vehicles are now utilizing Ingram's Mountain as a staging area for 4 hire vehicles, and the impact on 24-hour business has been negative according to reports. Our office has notified the Department of Transportation, Department of Sanitation, and the Health Department on some of the concerns. The Port Authority is reaching out to the Department of Transportation to negotiate improvements in the area. Our office is hoping to see meaningful improvements for the industrial business owner and our community as a whole. The high rate of street usage is impacting the quality of life in our community. There goes my report.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to move on to committee reports. Business and Economic Development. I don't think Brian and Brian are here tonight. There's no capital and expense report. Communications and Public Outreach. Hugh's not here. Okay, Consumer Affairs and Licenses. Kathleen.
Good evening, and we had a lot of applications to go over in our most recent meeting. We did not have any new applications for weed dispensaries, so we went past that. We had a significant number of applications for roadway and sidewalk dining, and as crazy as it seems, the roadway dining can commence again in April. So what we generally do is bring in the people, and since many of them are long-standing Astoria businesses, they know how to do sidewalk dining, and what we're asking them is that they understand this new application that DOT has, that they're following the recommendations, no more sidewalk sheds, comply with the periods of when they can have roadway dining, and sidewalk dining can be year-round. Pretty much the only thing we drill down on is when we see that there are a lot of tables and chairs, and we want to make sure that the business owners know that they have a reasonable number of tables and chairs, and if it looks like it's too many for their frontage, we do ask them questions about that. So we were very happy with the response, both from the old-timers and the newcomers who are ready to leap into it. Moving on to the liquor licenses. We also have a lot of liquor licenses that are new and for renewal. We do our due diligence, thanks to Florence and the 114, to find out if people are bad actors. And the only unanswered question we had after this is that we had asked the owners of a new establishment called Zone to come in and talk to us because they are taking over a spot that was previously known as Cancun and then Acapulco, and that had some black marks on its record, so to speak, with crime and with noise and things like that. Unfortunately, the new ownership was not able to attend, and has asked for us to consider her application next month. Other than that, everybody else that we either talked to or checked on, we feel like it would be okay to recommend either their renewal of their liquor license and or their new one. So I hope that was understandable, and if anybody has any particular questions about that, basically our suggestion or recommendation is to vote for the liquor licenses for everybody on our list, with the exception of Zone, because Zone we still want to talk to.
Okay, we need a motion, and then we can get a second and then discuss. Okay, Jean Marie, okay, Tom second. Any questions, discussion? Which one did you want to start? You're starting with the liquor license, or you're doing both together?
Yes, well, I actually think we can do both at the same time,
Okay.
because aside from Zone, we're carving out Zone. Everybody else seemed to know what they were doing, and we're doing it properly and within the law.
Okay, so any questions or comments about any of the applicants, including Zone?
Okay, if there are no questions, can we get a motion to?
We have the motion. We have the
Okay.
motion. I just want to make sure. So no
Great.
questions? Okay. So just to, so zone, they did not withdraw their application, correct? I just want to be sure.
No, they're coming back next month.
Okay. So I just, we never actually got the application, so we don't know when we have to get back to SLA.
Yeah, but we do not want to go ahead and recommend them without speaking to them simply because
Right.
of the history of that venue.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure we're, okay. So any questions, comments, concerns? Okay. So the motion is to approve all the licenses except for zone. So all in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? 2. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, thanks, Kathleen.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we are going to move on to education, libraries, and youth services. Amin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. We didn't have any meeting this month. We are going to have a meeting and then finalize our letter. Meanwhile, the Richard Kazimi, he was asking me to include that the cell phone and the other devices, electronic devices, including with our letter. So I was a little concerned that should we include that with that or not. So I would like to have the people say about it that we should be stick with our the addiction. We should put both together there. And I'd like to thank you, Frank and Dino, for their input in there. So I just wanted to know from everyone that, should we include that?
I think you discussed that at your committee meeting, right? What to include.
Okay,
Yeah.
we could do that. And then we'll
Right?
come back to
Yeah.
board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have environmental and sanitation.
I'll try to be quick. I have 2 topics. Last week we had Joel Automanelli from Department of Sanitation come and speak to us. New information. I'm not going to go over old information. Composting fines will start April 1st. So if DOS finds organics mixed in with your trash, you can get a ticket for that. They have gone through garbage looking for bottles, and so if they see bottles and recyclables mixed in with your regular trash, you will also get a ticket for that. But that's already in existence. Composting fines will start on April 1st. If new bins that you've purchased are stolen, you have to file a police report and you can get them replaced. If they're damaged by the sanitation workers during trash pickup, file a complaint with 311 and you can get a new one or they'll replace it. Larger buildings over 9 units may have to do containerization if they have a rat problem. Otherwise, they don't have to do containerization as of now. Discarded lithium batteries. I don't know if you've all seen in the news that lithium batteries have caused fires, and they're causing fires within the pickup trucks as well. So if you need to discard them, they're asking that you should bring them to College Point, which is our location in Queens, for safe disposal, or they have a yearly safe disposal event in Astoria Park once a year. I've asked them to look into a pilot program to see if we can get pickup once a year or twice a year for some of these hazardous items. Hopefully he'll get back to us, but maybe we can work with our local representatives to maybe get that going, because people are not going to travel to dispose of these things if they don't have cars or easy way to get to these places. And then also homes can get ticketed if they have debris within 18 inches from their curb, and the sweet spot times are between 8 and 9 a.m. is when they check, or 6 to 8 p.m. So make sure during that time your curbside is clear. Now on to the next thing. You've heard me talk about fluoride in our water. We had quorum at this last meeting, and there was no opposition to the letter that I drafted. But it's a difficult topic to digest. As we know, lead paint and asbestos was safe until not too long ago. So now topic of, or du jour, is fluoride. And as a result, the recent decision by Judge Chen found that the current levels of fluoride poses an unreasonable risk of reduced IQ in children. An infant can drink its body weight in formula over a couple of days, and that's formula made with tap water. So the dose is not controlled. The dose that you're drinking in municipal water is not controlled to accommodate for a person's body or weight. And people can still get fluoride in toothpaste if they want to have fluoride, but there is, in this packet, there is a link that showed that even a CDC representative couldn't provide any studies showing that there is a beneficial or any benefit to someone ingesting, or a child or an adult ingesting fluoridated water. So it would be great if we could join our neighbors in Nassau and Suffolk and in Rockland County that do not have fluoride in their water. They've never had fluoride in their water. So there are a lot of municipalities that don't have fluoride in the water. So this letter will serve to ask our representatives for support in petitioning the EPA in removing fluoride from our water, and Senator Gonzalez in one of the previous meetings offered to help us with that. So I'd like to motion, unless anyone has a question, I'd like to motion the ability to send this letter to our electeds so that they can support us in getting or petitioning the EPA to remove fluoride from our water. Not sure if anything's going to happen, but at least we'll have it on record.
Kian, did you want to second or? Okay, so in order to have the comments, we need someone to second. If someone doesn't second it, then we don't continue. So. I second. Okay, I mean seconds. Now we can have our discussion. Okay, go ahead.
So I spent a lot of my week diving into a lot of this stuff, and I think the take home from this is that I'm not convinced that it's nearly as conclusive as it seems to be. I dove into the meta-analysis, and one of the things, just a couple of things I want to be able to rattle off here. There were 74 studies that were looked at in total. I think about 52 or 54 of those, which is about 70%, the authors claimed as having a high risk of bias. They themselves acknowledge that the nature of this study is correlational, so that it's associative and there's not necessarily a causal link. I also want to point out the fact that the vast majority of these studies were done outside of the country. I think around 45 of them were done from China. So there were actually 3 buckets that they were measuring this under. That is 4 milligrams per liter, 2, and less than 1.5. Currently, what we have is around 0.7 to 1.5 milligrams per liter. The study found very mixed results depending on the method used for the 1.5 or less, right? And 1.5 is generally higher than we would see in much of the US. It tends to be around 0.7. The other thing I want to note here is that the large concern here is for pregnant women. That is what was studied, and the effect was on child IQ. Right now, they did not study, or at least I didn't see any evidence of, impact healthy adults. So I don't mean to dismiss all of this as anything. Like, I think it's worth noting there was Judge Chen who did rule that the EPA should do something about it. But what the EPA does can vary from, for instance, more study. Like the recommendation might be, hey, we need to look at this further. There's an interesting correlational link, and therefore it might be something that we want to look at further. The CDC still does maintain that there is an active harm for regular adults to have it. So I say all this to say that I personally am not comfortable with a letter that would recommend removing fluoride entirely. Most are disputing what the healthy level might be. I think the 0.7 marker is what's in question. And I think ultimately it would be okay to say, for instance, maybe we want our elected officials or whomever to pay attention to the new EPA ruling, or even maybe have an advisory for women who are pregnant or might believe they might become pregnant as a means of warning. But I also fear about blowing this out of proportion based on the tenuousness that I see as far as the studies that I've looked into. And that's from reading the entire study and the 80-page opinion that was written by Judge Chen.
Thank you. Anyone else? Comments, questions? Okay. Dan, and then I'll head back down there.
There
here we go, microphone. 2 points. One is that I've been reading and studying and learning about fluoride for quite a few years, since I would say 1963, 62. Many, many years there's been back and forth over the fluoridation, no fluoridation. There were towns in Rockland County that did have fluoride and then removed it. There are many towns that started it and stopped it and then put it back in over the years. But overall, I have a problem with medicating society. All of us taking a medication in our water. If we want it, why don't, the government could provide it, our town could provide it in tablets or in toothpaste or in some other form for us who want it, and not give it to those who don't want it. A lot of us are being medicated, not even knowing it, and others are against our will. And so those who don't want it are going out and buying fluoride removal, filters, and going through all sorts of trouble to remove this thing that I feel shouldn't be in there to begin with. There is fluoride. There are fluoride pills. There are fluoride treatments for our teeth. We can get fluoride in many ways if we want it. And to give it to us against our will is a problem for me.
Okay. Other people had their hands up? Naz, and then Dom, did you have your hand up too?
So as someone who very much is concerned with our lived environment and chemicals that affect us and everything, I appreciate the intent of the letter. I just feel that the basis by which it's being presented is, I'd say, kind of misses the mark. For example, I would just point out that if you read the ruling, the judge explicitly states that this does not conclude definitively that there is a harm, in his opinion, but that he's asking the EPA to perhaps consider the thresholds in light of some unsurety of what the, let's say, safest threshold is. So in consideration of that and the fact that, this was actually like a pretty well-known case, and so just a cursory internet search brought up a lot of scientific journalism that was commenting that these particular studies that were referenced in this case actually failed peer review several times, and so they were self-published. And not to say that, we're fully equipped here on this board to have, rigorous scientific debates, but, just because one particular study, let's say, posits that there is a harm, there are levels of peer review and decades of other contradictory studies. And so we are always kind of operating on the best information that we have. That's just kind of the whole process of academia and science. And so I don't know that a ruling where a judge says, I'm not sure, but maybe the EPA should look at it, warrants something from the city community board asking like the federal government to remove our fluoridation. So that's not to say whether or not I think that it is harmful or not. I just think that the letter does not necessarily speak to what this ruling is presenting. And so using that as a basis to ask for no fluoridation in Community Board 1, which I don't know how that would work, it is I don't know. I just feel that the letter is not considered if this is going to be the basis for writing it. So in my opinion, I would just motion to table this until maybe it's a little more well-researched, but I would make that motion if I can now, but otherwise, I'm not sure that I think this letter's really, I don't think there's a good basis for it yet, at least, unless we perhaps present it a little bit better and more researched.
You can make a motion to table. It would have to be second, and then we'd have to discuss it and then vote to see if we want a motion to table. And then if that motion fails, then we'd go back and vote on the original motion. So are you making a motion or no?
Yes, I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Well, can I respond to the comments before
Hold on.
we do
Yes.
that?
Once we get the, go ahead. Who is? Okay. All right. So now we can have a discussion. You want to respond, Antonella?
Yeah, there were
I watched the court case, I mean thoroughly, and they had experts from both sides, and it was very compelling. And there were multiple studies that were looked at, not just one, so I need to correct that. And also, the items that I put in this letter were factual. These are from the decision. The court finds that fluoridation of water at 0.7 milligrams per liter, at the level presently considered optimal in the United States, poses an unreasonable risk of reduced IQ in children. The court finds there's an unreasonable risk of such injury, a risk sufficient to require the EPA to engage with a regulatory response. Why would we want to expose our kids if there is any risk of reduced IQ or any detriment to them? Well, why would we want to do this? This was in a court case. A judge found that there was credible evidence to rule in this way, and this case went on for 7 years because the EPA was trying to skirt and suppress, no, it wasn't the EPA, it was the NIH that was trying to suppress the information from previous years. The report that was actually written by one of the departments within the NIH that found it to be detrimental. So I don't know, in science you have to take the precautionary principle, which means that if there's any risk, don't do it. So if we know there's a risk, and there are many municipalities in Florida that have removed it, and other parts of the US that have already removed it as a result of this case. So why would we want to expose a baby that's being fed fluoridated water with their formula and poison their bodies, poison kids, and have a detriment to their IQ? I don't understand why we wouldn't take the safe route and why we would not err on the side of caution. And if it's proven down the line without a reasonable doubt that there is no detriment to human health, then put it back in. But the court found that it had detrimental effects. So that's why everything I put in this letter is fact. I didn't put any opinion in this letter.
Okay. I want to let others talk as well. Okay, so Adam? And then Frank.
So, thank you.
And remember, the motion right now is to table, right? So that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, I would say in support of a motion to table. I think, I don't know what everybody here does for a job, but I would assume the majority of us are not really equipped to evaluate the scientific findings here. And the judge with a bunch of experts in front of him did so and proposed a remedy, which is for the EPA to take action based upon those experts. I'm not sure what it makes sense for us as a community board to do beyond that, especially recommending a specific remedy of removing fluoride when we certainly don't have more information than this judge had in front of him. We certainly don't have more information than those experts did. And that being said, I do just also want to say that there are also studies of correlation, clear correlation of like dental outcomes between places that do have fluoride and don't have fluoride. I'm not qualified to say if those studies are great or not any more than I am of these, but to say that we know that one thing is completely safe and one thing is not completely safe. Again, I don't think we have the information to do that and shouldn't be recommending something so specific as removing fluoride from the water here. I think we could say, why don't you go look at these studies again, but that is, again, what this judge has asked the EPA to do already, so I'm not sure what additional remedy we would really be productively proposing here.
Okay, Frank.
Yes, so I perhaps echo some of the general sentiment we've heard, but I don't have a PhD. I didn't read all 80 pages, so I would acknowledge that there's some depth of here. What I would say is my job as executive director of an organization is to fund anything that reduces child mortality. There are 14,000 children die a day of preventable causes. I have to stay immersed in the things that are dangerous for babies around the world. And incidentally, fluoride has not been on that list. And when I've looked at studies, and I haven't looked at the meta-analysis, that's obviously a much better way to go about it, none of the studies I found ever showed anything having adverse effects that was statistically significant below 1.5, and I believe New York City does not have and has not been tracked anywhere being over 1.5 for decades. There are places that have removed fluoride from the water, but there are also water sources that are naturally fluoridated. and I do not believe ours is naturally fluoridated. In places where they have removed fluoride and was not naturally fluoridated, and this is a study I looked at a long time ago, so it's very fuzzy, I believe they had adverse dental effects. So to table is not to say that, like, if I had to vote today, it would be no, but I'm in supporting of tabling so that we can gather, have the opportunity to perhaps have more information so there is more consensus among us as a community board. Because with the information in my professional context, which is limited, I am not convinced at this moment. But I want to create rather than voting no today, the motion to dismiss is to table is so that we have that time and it does get its full opportunity to be evaluated by our body. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else on this motion? Discussion? Okay, Dan.
Table it. Yeah, I want to table it. I want to table it based on human/civil rights, and I don't believe in medicating the society. I mean, what would be wrong with putting some other substance in that most people benefit from, but there is a small portion of society that doesn't benefit from it, and those people are being medicated against, would be medicated against their will, and it's my civil right, human rights, to not be medicated against my will, and that's why I want to table it for now.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Call the question. All right. We're going to call to question.
Wait. Oh, sorry.
We're going to call to question. Okay. So now we're voting on whether or not we table it for the future with the intent to possibly to do some reworking so that there could be more consensus among the board. So that's on the that's okay. Yeah. All right. So all in favor, say aye. Aye. Table. Anyone opposed? Okay, anyone abstaining? Okay, so we're going to table it, and we'll do some additional work on it.
Okay, yeah, and I can gather information, and I can have another meeting with the Fluoride Action Network or the attorney who dealt with this case or scientists. I'll find
I think just also listen to kind of what people were saying, just in terms of what's going to make them comfortable with the letter. So
I mean, I want to address everyone's concerns. Okay. I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable with this decision, so I'll work on doing that. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, anything else, Antonella?
No, that's
okay, great, thank you. Health and Human Services, Shahanaz.
Good evening, everyone. We didn't have a meeting this month, and I believe we're going to have one in March. I'm working with Florence in this. That's correct, Florence? Thanks a lot, everyone. Stay warm.
Thank you. Housing, Katie's not here. Land use and zoning, Andreas.
All right, good evening, everybody. A couple different things to discuss. So I think the first thing that we can do is go back to the presentation we saw about the gas station earlier. So just to summarize, for everybody, essentially they're doing work, to take that repair shop, make into a convenience store, add an extra pump, and they're looking for a BSA variance to do that. Some other points that we picked up in committee that I think are relevant is that the station is estimated to be closed for about 3 months. They don't anticipate traffic flow to be impeded by construction, and lighting from the station and convenience store are going to be aimed downward to not impact surrounding residential area. So I believe we were looking to make a motion there, essentially to recommend approval of that BSA application to renovate the gas station.
So we don't have quorum anymore?
Oh, we don't? Okay.
Nope. So we have 48 members? We have 50? Okay, I guess we do have quorum then. Okay. Because we had 2 people left the board. Okay, so we're good.
And Dino seconded.
So we're good. So the motion was to, sorry?
To recommend approval of the BSA item, the application to renovate the gas station at 3102 Astoria Boulevard.
Okay. Anyone want a second? Okay, Marie? Okay, discussion. Yes. Adam?
I guess a question about this. Do we have an opportunity here to put a term, or to recommend that BSA put a term limit on this variance or whatever it was, given that it doesn't have one right now?
They're grandfathered in because this goes back to 1933, as he said. This gas station's been there a long time. So I don't think we could maybe, I don't know if we'd actually have if that could happen. I mean, we could always express that as a concern in our response, that there's no, but I think it's grandfathered in, so.
Yeah, I guess given that we don't know, I would, I guess, make a motion to amend that we request whatever we can of them to put some sort of term limit on it, just so that, there's not fossil fuel infrastructure with an indefinite term limit on it. Even if it seems like we don't really know what they can do at this stage.
So you'd like to maybe include that in the letter?
Yes.
Okay. Other questions, thoughts, comments? No? Okay. All right. Then we're going to take a vote. And this we have to do a roll call because it's it's BSA, but we'll take a roll call vote anyway. Okay. So Amy will do roll call.
Hi, good evening. Dan Aliberti. Yes. Thank you. Is Christian Batras here? No. Kian Bentecourt?
Here.
Yes, no?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. No, Cherry. Jean Marie DeLeva. Yes. Antonelli De Severio? Yes. Dean Feratovic? Yes. Adam Fisher-Cox?
Yes.
Frank Fredericks?
Yes.
Tyrone Gardner? Yes. Shahanas? Yes. Amy Howe is a yes. No Brian Hunt, right? Jacqueline Ibarra? Yes. Thank you. Raga Medella? Yes. Thank you. Naz?
Yes.
Patricia Mahecha? Yes. Thank you. Amin Mehedi?
Yes.
Andreas?
Yes.
Stella Nicolau? Yes. Thank you. Dino Panagoulis?
Yes.
Juliet Payab? Juliet? Oh, she just stepped out?
Yeah, she stepped out.
Can we come back to her? Okay. Thomas Ryan left. Maricela is not here, right? Dominic Stiller? Yes. Dominic? Thank you. Marie Torniali?
Yes.
Mario Vergara?
Yes.
Kathleen Warnock?
Yes.
Noah Corinne. Thomas Wright Fernandez?
Yes.
Thank you. Evie Hensopoulos? Yes. And is Juliet back? We need a vote from you. The BSA application? Thank you so much. Thank you. So that's pretty much unanimous.
So the motion carries to approve. However, we will mention the possibility of term limits, even though it's grandfathered in. I think that was a question of Liz's as well. She had a concern about that. Okay, thank you. Anything else to report, Andreas?
Yeah, just a couple of extra quick notes. So in addition to that item, during the last land use committee meeting, we started briefly discussing the idea that the ICO senior housing rezoning was refiled with DCP. So that's something that I think we're going to see in the next couple months. The revised application essentially was amended to add additional units and floors due to the new City of Yes regulations. It looks like they're increasing by an additional 2 stories and 33 units. Again, something that will come in front of the committee at a later date. And the area proposed to be rezoned also includes now the west side of 31st Street, where the vacant food town is. And then in addition to that, we're going to have our next land use committee meeting on Wednesday, March 5th. And at that meeting, we're going to be looking at proposed rezoning at 4211 30th Avenue, where the Key Food is, where they're looking to build a mixed-use development with apartments and a grocery store there. And that's all, and have a good night.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have legal, legislative, and parliamentary. Rod is not here. There was a meeting to start some work on the bylaws. I know he's trying to schedule another one for early March as well to continue the process. Okay, Parks, Recreation, and Cultural. Both Richard and Rosemary are not here. They have a report. I mean, they had someone from DCLA come and speak to them about what they do and how they kind of intersect with parks and culture. They're the city agency that funds the arts, among other things. And also, it was announced that Rainey Park is not going to open until April. I know that that was a question that a lot of people had or people were wondering about. So not till April.
At the earliest.
At the earliest. Yeah, so let's cross our fingers and hope it's April and not later than that. Next up, we have public safety. Chris isn't here. Frank, did you have anything to report?
Just look out for an upcoming call, committee meeting in, I think, early March. We're hoping to have Rana from Alika to present about some of the work they're doing in our community. We're just waiting to get the date and time sorted, but it's already done. Oh,
Okay,
cool. I
great.
haven't seen it yet. Do you know the date and time?
I emailed it to you and Frank, but I don't remember what it was.
Oh, I'm Frank.
I mean, to you and Chris. I apologize.
No worries. So I didn't know I would be presenting. It's coming, and you'll see it very soon in your inboxes. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Frank. Okay, transportation, Dom.
Hi. Yes. Hi, everybody. We did have a committee meeting on Wednesday, the 12th of February by Zoom. The Port Authority of New York gave a presentation about the changes in FHV, which is for-hire vehicle staging area. They've moved it outside of the airport, convenient for them. FHV staging area outside airport is now on a mountain in Queens called Ingram, spelled Ingraham, but pronounced Ingram Mountain, north side of 19th Street, just east of 45th Street. The presentation was given by Tony Vero, General Manager of LaGuardia Airport, and Hirsch Perek, Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, Deputy Chief of Intergovernmental Affairs, and they brought four other representatives. They were well represented, and we appreciated their time. The Port Authority stated that the circuitous route through the area, which basically takes these for-hire vehicles up the farthest, side of away from LaGuardia Airport, up 19th Street, up 45th Street, north of 19th Street. The area is the only way to access the site due to large inclines on the southeast and the west sides. Local residents came out en masse and made their voices heard about their safety concerns and dissatisfaction about the increased FHV traffic through the area, quoting safety concerns, lack of traffic calming components such as speed bumps, stop signs, traffic signs, crosswalks. The public was encouraged to reiterate the concerns directly at this open meeting tonight. It was discussed that CB1 management, and Florence in her report said that she had done this, would set up a meeting with Queens DOT to discuss how the area could be made less dangerous to pedestrians. I request that Florence could forward me any letter to DOT. I'd like to see it, please. On new business, just one topic among a few discussions. CB1 committee talked about the recent trend in super bright vehicle headlights and ineffective illumination on local streets, and this topic will be discussed further. That's the end of my report.
Thank you so much. Okay, that is the end of committee reports. Any old or new business? No? Okay. We're going to hear from any elected official reps that we have here.
Hi guys, my name's Claire. I'm the CB1 liaison from the Office of Queensborough President Donovan Richards. So like Evie said in her report, the CB applications are all in, the deadline has passed. So if you applied as a new applicant, you need to interview. So look out in your email. I sent you an email. Click on the link, schedule your interview, so that your application, so we can, consider you. And then we have like 2 events. I'm trying to be quick. Wednesday, February 26th at 6 p.m., we're having our Black History Month celebration at Queensborough Hall. The next day, February 27th at 5:30 p.m., we're having our North Queens Town Hall. And then that's at Queensborough Community College in Bayside, kind of far from here, but yeah. And, oh, Thursday, February 20th, 6 p.m., we're hosting our Dominican Independence Day celebration at Queensborough Hall. Tuesday, February 25th, we're hosting our monthly Parents Advisory Board meeting, and this is hybrid. To attend in person, it's going to be at 118-35 Queens Boulevard, which is in Forest Hills. And to attend via Zoom, you can just go to queensbp.nyc.gov for that link. And yeah, you can RSVP to any of our events at queensbp.nyc.gov. Again, if you applied as a new applicant, please check your email. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Michi. I'm the new community liaison from the Office of Assembly Member Stephen Raga. The Assembly member sent his greetings to everybody tonight. He apologized for not being able to be here because he's sick at the moment. I'll share some updates from our office with everybody about legislative update. So as we're starting budget negotiation, the Assembly member is leading budget campaigns on alleviating medical debt in New York State and better supporting Michelle-Lamar preservation, both of which will help alleviate issues of affordability affecting working families. About community affairs and upcoming event, we have three things. Partner with NYPA, we hosting a weathering workshop. This will happen on February 27 from 6 to 8 p.m. in Jackson Heights. Reservation is required, so please meet with me after the meeting for more information on that. Secondly, we're hosting a legal clinic with Corey on Thursday, February 22nd at our district office from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. This is for any individual who are interested in receiving legal assistance for housing matters. You can call our office at 718-651-3185 to schedule an appointment. Lastly, our office has been doing free tax preparation with Urban Upbound every Saturday until April 5th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Just give our office a call and make your schedule. Okay, that's all. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. As the senator stated, it's great to be back. Hope everyone had a happy Lunar New Year and a happy Valentine's Day. Congestion pricing is now in effect. Please contact our office if you have any questions on how this will affect you. The MTA also has recorded webinars and facts. We'd also like to learn more about your thoughts on the effectiveness of congestion pricing. We've created an online survey. If you'd like to know more, like how to access it, please speak to me afterward. Heat reminder, your landlord is required to provide heat until May 31st. If you are experiencing frequent heat, gas, or hot water outages, please reach out to our office. We will be holding our Astoria office hours every fourth Monday of each month. We'll be joined by Communities Resist for a housing clinic every month. Our next office hours will be held on February 24th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Queens Public Library. And as far as the tax season, we will be holding a tax prep info session with the NYC DCYP this January 22nd from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. It's virtual. If you're interested in joining, please speak to me on more information on how to RSVP. As far as legislative updates, in late December, the governor signed Senator Gonzalez's bill that implements regulatory guidelines on our state's government's use of AI. The bill is the first of its kind in the nation to provide comprehensive labor protections for state workers whose jobs may be impacted by AI. The bill requires disclosure of the use of automated employment decision-making tools in state agencies and requires the creation of an inventory of AI use cases that may impact New Yorkers to be made publicly accessible by the end of 2025. Recently, the senator introduced the New York State Sustainable.
Okay, yeah, there's time. I just want to, you did say that if people had concerns about congestion pricing, they could contact your office?
Yes.
Because we did get a letter recently, so I just wanted
Yes, contact
to make
our
sure.
office.
Okay.
We also have a survey. You can contact me.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. Hello. How are you all doing tonight? Great.
Good.
Great. Benjamin from Assemblymember Zahra Mamdani's office. It's nice to be back alongside you all on this cold February day. Our office wishes everyone a happy Lunar New Year. Okay, to start, our office is running a consumer utility clinic on Thursday, March 20th from 5:30 to 8 p.m. to help constituents better understand their Con Ed bills, discover energy saving programs, and learn about assistance options like the Home Energy Assistance Program and EAP Energy Affordability Program. We're holding this alongside Tiffany Caban's office, AOC's office, and Kristen Gonzalez's office at the Variety Boys and Girls Club, and any interested folks who want to go should bring a copy of their most recent Con Ed bill, some ID, and a benefit awards letter from the last year. Secondly, would love to discuss the MTA a bit. The MTA is looking to get some rider input on finding which stations it should prioritize for accessibility improvements over the next 5 years. In its proposed 2025-2029 capital plan, it identified 30 initial stations for accessibility improvements. It's looking to find 30 more, and so you can actually affect this by going to mta.info/accessibility/select-stations, and you can suggest which stations they should improve via accessibility improvements. Lastly, our office is following closely Con Ed's latest rate case with the Public Service Commission. This is case 25-00241, in which it requested a 19.1 increase in delivery bill costs and a 13.4 increase in total bill amount costs on average per person per month. So as an update, as of last week, the PSC delayed the approval/rejection of the effective date of this until June 30th of this year. As always, excuse me, if you have any issues with Con Ed, let us know. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
I also just want to thank the members of the public who are like hanging in there till the end. We appreciate you.
It's always tough to go at the end. So, hi everyone. It's James Mongeluso here, the Queensborough Director from the Office of New York City Controller Brad Lander. Hoping to get him here maybe next month or the month after, something like that. But I do have a few updates for you. I'll just give you some of the highlights for February. First, our office declined to register the ShotSpotter contract. That's the technology the NYPD uses to try to track when firearms are shot off. We did, I think, 5 months of auditing, and in no month did we even find 80% of the time that it was accurate in identifying that a shot was fired. And sometimes it was inaccurate over 90, several times it was over 90% of the times inaccurate. So we didn't register that contract to continue that or like increase the spending on that. If you want some info on any of these, just talk to me after. Also, we found, again, 9 out of 10 of the human service contracts came to our office late. We're the only part in the contracting system that has a timeline. We have 30 days to review the contracts given to us by the agencies, but the agencies take forever. That's why there's late payments. I know some of you know this personally, or running organizations or have run organizations that rely on city funding, including like the last two chairs. Also, we put up a database that gives you information on how New York City could be impacted by federal funding freeze or cuts to federal funding. That's on the website. We also just did a study on the outdoor restaurant permitting for the program that's going to start April 1st. Right, there were about 12,000 or so restaurants that had outdoor dining, either on the sidewalk or on the street during the height of the pandemic. There's been 3,500 that have applied so far under the current program that was created by the City Council. Only somewhere between 39 and 42 have been approved so far, and I think there's roughly the same number in a queue that's sent to our office, because by law it has to be sent to our office after DOT okays it, so we're trying to get DOT to figure that out, do it more streamlined. Yeah, if you want to talk to me after, go ahead, and we have internships if you're interested.
Thank you.
College students, grad students.
All right, good evening, CB1. Nice to see you. My name is Tiffany. I'm here on behalf of Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez. As you may know, there's a lot of federal updates, but I'm just going to try to keep it extremely concise. Some local things that she has done on January 29th, she hosted an immigration roundtable with Western Queens community leaders, basically to talk about some updates that the Trump administration is doing and how to move forward. And tomorrow, actually, she is hosting a town hall
at Sunnyside Community Services from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Please RSVP to get a seat as its seating is limited. If you're a constituent, please sign up to her newsletter. You will get an email blast in the morning, so definitely sign up tonight if you're a constituent. I have more flyers here. This is what it looks like. Please grab one on the table. We also have a Facebook Live presentation if you can't make it in person. So some things that are going to be talked about tomorrow are some updates on the Department of Education. The Congresswoman co-sponsored the Department of Education Act, which basically provides protection of the structure, because we know that the current president is trying to eliminate the Department of Education. Just wanted to clarify that she's definitely not in support of this. She's also not in support of Elon Musk being the second president. She is very disappalled that the Congresswoman, she's upset that it's unconstitutional to have an unelected billionaire be in a position that he is right now. He has access to the federal financial system, which exposes all of our personal financial information. As ranking member of the House Committee on Small Business, she led a letter addressing to the Small Business Administration Administrator, clarifying what is the exact extent of Musk's access to all of our personal information and for small business owners. Again, we could learn a little bit more tomorrow at the town hall. Lastly, tariffs went into effect on China on February 10th. The Congresswoman is very opposed to this because obviously they would hurt working class families. We could learn more a little bit more tomorrow, but if you need more information,
Thank you.
it's over there.
Thank you so much.
I hope I'm last. Hi there. Here on behalf of Assemblymember Jessica Gonzalez Rojas. Tonight, I'd like to share about a survey that our office is conducting in order to gain a better understanding of the needs of our community, of course. We're asking questions such as, what are your top 3 priorities? As well as what additional resources you want information from our office. Hey, as folks on the board, we're counting on you and your leadership to help us ensure that all of our neighbors fill out the survey and voice their thoughts. There's a couple of ways to do so. If you're in District 34, you'll soon receive a mailer that you could securely send back to us with your responses written in it. Or if you can complete it online, check out the table over there for a flyer with the QR code and all that good stuff. Trust your responses will be heard. We're always aiming to respond to your needs as you ask of them in the moment. For example, in response to the concerns about federal agents on our school property, we're working with Astoria's very own Sienna, the Center for Integration and Advancement of New Americans for Know Your Rights training, like the brilliant one that we heard tonight. Although this one is for school administrators, folks on PTAs, and the broader school community, it doesn't hurt to have a refresher as well. Besides those matters, our office is also hosting a housing clinic and an unclaimed funds clinic, so check out the flyers with more info about that on our table over there. That's it from me. Have a good night, CB1.
Thank you so much. Any other reps? Okay. Well, it's that time, folks. Can I have a second? All right. All in favor? Yeah, we good? All right. Aye. All right. Thank you all. And thanks again to the public who is here tonight. Thanks for coming out this cold weather.